Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 480. I am so excited to have Brooke Hazen on the show. Brooke's an organic farmer, lifelong athlete, physical coach, health and fitness enthusiast, and an author. I'm really excited to talk about our subject today, which is a deep dive into ED and uncovering what's going on in your health that is obstructing your sexual health. So what I love to look at is the body speaks to us in symptoms. And this is something I was been taught by many of my naturopathic mentors over the years, that the body, we weren't born with a manual, right? But if we listen really closely to the symptoms of our body, we can begin to hear the messages our body's trying to tell us. And erectile dysfunction, both in men and women, is a big, I should back up, sexual dysfunction in men or women, anyone, any adult who notices that they have a difficult time being aroused or painful sex or just all the issues around that, or not even wanting it. No, any of that is a great indication of hormone imbalance, of pelvic floor dysfunction, of nutrient deficiency, and the list goes on and on. In fact, erectile dysfunction, just for men as an example, is an early sign of diabetes and heart disease as a result, because it's a cardiovascular issue. One of the actual issues is cardiovascular. And Brooke, what I love is that you're really going to dive down deep into it and show us the different aspects of this dysfunction and how we can heal our body holistically as a whole to have a healthy sexual life, because that means it's a symptom, right? So it means that if you have a healthy sexual life, it means that your hormones are balanced, your cardiovascular system's healthy. There's a lot of great things going on. Your pelvic floor is healthy. So we're going to dive into all those things. But first, I have something. I'm just so curious about your organic farming company. I want to learn more about that as well. Can we talk about that first?
Yes, thank you for having me on. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have this beautiful organic farm in California, and you cultivate medicinal herbs and a special type of olives that are high in healing properties. How can we buy your products? Because I know you've got this little organic farm to help people gain access to these medicinal products that aren't just in the grocery stores.
Well, I'm moving largely direct to customer at this point. So my website has all the information for getting engaged with my organic farming part of myself, besides my author part. And it's called GoldRidgeOrganicFarms.com. GoldRidgeOrganicFarms.com. Great. Well, of course, the links to everything that Brooke does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at LearnTrueHealth.com. And of course, the link to your book, You Are Not Broken, a holistic guide for men and women to heal the pathways of sexual dysfunction and restore relational harmony together. That's a mouthful. Yes, it is.
Absolutely. Well, I've been seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist, healing from my last 2 pregnancies, and I'm learning so much about how, for both men and women, and men, it just goes so much more undiagnosed than women, but that if there's an imbalance in the pelvic floor, it can lead to all kinds of pain or sexual dysfunctions, and they might not even think to look there. So but that's just one aspect, right? There's the majority of it is diet and nutrition, which of course, being an organic farmer, being really interested in medicinal foods, you're seeing that there's a difference that when you consume medicinal quality foods versus just going and eating conventionally grown foods, you see a big difference in your health. What led you, because you're such an enthusiast around health and fitness, what led you to become an organic farmer and dive into this world?
Well, I just love to be connected to nature, and I wanted to do something with my hands that I could see the results of my work. And so I was interested in natural resources at first, and then over time I came a bit down to earth and started getting into organic farming.
And how many years have you been doing it?
Oh, my whole adult life. I studied it in college, and ever since I got out of, even in college, I started apprenticing. And then afterwards, I eventually started my own farm.
Love it. Now, a little bit off topic, but I'm really curious with this state of affairs going on. Are you being affected by the global fertilizer shortages?
No, I believe that's more synthetic fertilizers, and I'm organic, and so those are usually natural material. They are natural materials.
Fascinating. So we're going to see sort of a bump in the organic farming world because they aren't reliant on the fertilizers that now we have a massive shortage of.
Yeah, we should, hopefully.
Cool. Well, keep buying organic. Keep supporting those local farmers that are doing such good for our bodies and for the world. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, okay, so tell your story. So what happened? So you went to school to become a farmer. You got super excited about organic farming. What led you down this path that had you write this book?
Well, this beautiful journey started several years ago when I started noticing the symptoms of erectile dysfunction. And I don't even like to use that word, erectile dysfunction, because that's really a word that's meant to sort of cast a veil of mysticism and disempowerment over us. When I'm going to end up breaking it down for you, it's really, nothing could be further from the truth. We have very simple and easy solutions for all the different types of ED I've identified, whether that's organic or neurological or energetic. And I actually had more of an arousal issue that's neurologically based. So that's dopamine mainly. And I also had an energetic ED from releasing my semen too often. And I was doing this because I was addicted to pornography. And it really isn't an addiction. And I'll tell you why when we get into this further. But so what I did at the time, I had no idea what all this was. And I did what everyone else thought, which was to reach out to Western medicine. And they, of course, prescribed to me the only remedy they have, which is a very specific pharmaceutical for cardiovascular blood flow. And I actually had, and millions of men actually, and women actually have porn-induced erectile dysfunction, which is a neurologically based form of erectile dysfunction, or really an arousal dysfunction, where we become desensitized to sex, to our partner, and to life. And it can escalate to the point where it eventually, you no longer can get aroused to not only your partner, a real life partner, which is what was happening to me, but also your favorite pornography. Eventually you become fully desensitized to life completely on every level. So I didn't know all this. So I was experiencing debilitating side effects because I was being misdiagnosed and misprescribed, just like millions of men right now, with blood flow inducing pharmaceutical drugs, when I actually had something that was easily fixable and curable that was neurologically based. So we don't realize how the immense burdens that men are under when they are addicted to pornography. There's a few different things happening all at once. There's this unneeded burden of debilitating side effects from the erectile dysfunction drugs I just mentioned, which causes fatigue and all kinds of horrible symptoms. But there's also what I found out later was debilitating side effects of being addicted to pornography, which is perpetual dopamine crashes and the associated fatigue and mood imbalance and distancing in the relationships that takes place. Furthermore, we have this undue burden of the scarlet letter that Western medicine places on men with the word erectile dysfunction and all the associated loss of identity and confidence and confusion and disempowerment that comes with it. So I was going through all these burdens at the time. And the reason I wrote this book is because I want to help others avoid this. And there are millions going through this right now. The fastest growing segment of ED is porn-induced erectile dysfunction and this energetic form of semen release to pornography. So as I was going through this process, I was going through so much. I'll never forget it. I felt like a gerbil on an experimental wheel, with all these different types of pharmaceutical EDs, and they were debilitating, they were exacting and mechanical, and I was dependent on them. And it was not in resonance with who I am, my heart and my soul. But during this time, I was praying to God, and I was praying for a natural drug which could not have side effects and works. And I was never going to get that prayer answered because God had so much more in store for me besides a drug that I was dependent on, whether that's natural or that's pharmaceutical. As I ran out of options, and there was nothing left for me in the pharmaceutical realm, I fell into a deep depression for weeks at a time. And that was when I began to let go of my control and release myself completely into God's arms and pray for a true healing miracle. It was at that time that God actually did hear me and gave me a true healing miracle. And God decided to start the journey that I was to take place of restoring not only the most incredible sexual health beyond what I ever could have imagined, but also my overall physical health, my relational health, and my mental and emotional health. And God also showed me how this is all intertwined. God is the ultimate holistic healer, the power behind all holistic healing. If we just let God in, we can unleash all the power, unlimited potential of our mind. And the key to doing that, I have found, and I'll never forget why God led me first to Your Brain on Porn website by Gary Wilson, was to show myself and everyone that this key, this foundation, all starts with our neurology, having a healthy neurology, meaning balanced dopamine levels, as well as our overall chi sexual energy by simply getting rid of our addictions to pornography and semen release. That is really where we must start. And that's where it's the foundation for really launching us into massive transformation on every level. It's all intertwined and connected. It is all holistic.
I love it. You were led to this website, Your Brain on Porn. And how long did it take to reverse this issue and be healed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this process of rewiring and rebuilding and regrooving our neurochemistry, these neurotransmitter hormones of dopamine, because this is a dopamine addiction when you're addicted to pornography, on par with actually the same level as cocaine and morphine addicts. In fact, the dopamine levels have been measured to be just as low as cocaine and morphine addicts. But this process takes it takes at least months. It takes sometimes a year. It could go as long as 2 years. But what I've found is that this process of rewiring and resensitizing ourselves to life actually can take a couple years, and I'm still seeing increased sensitivity to everything around me. And this includes also sort of refraining from virtual type of imagery, not just pornography, but this whole fantasy of pixels on a screen, because it's really our neurology that's getting desensitized to life by this whole fantasy that's going on in our brain. Our brain cannot actually tell the difference between a fantasy and real life. So men actually believe they're on this successful campaign with mating with a wide range of novel mates, which gets into the mating behaviors that is so prominent in pornography and in relationships today, that is really poisonous to long-term sustainable relationships. But there's really 3 different kinds of ED. And I want to demystify it. I want to educate us about it because I believe that there's so much myths and misconceptions around it that really Western medicine sort of promotes because they really only have one tool for resolving it, and that is this one form of medication. They have no idea what to do with the fastest growing segment of ED, which is neurologically based ED. And they're never going to really give you a holistic approach that's curative and preventative. You can try as much as you want. They will never give that to you. They only have this one tool. And even that one tool does not actually resolve organic ED, which is physical source of ED, which is what everyone talks about. You were talking about Kegels. And I get into all that deeply in the book. The second half of my book covers all of organic ED. But first, we have to really focus on the real problem. We have to go to neurologically based ED and energetic ED first. And those are the first two that I've found are the predominant source of ED taking place today and where we must go first. And we're actually the only ones capable. We're so empowered. We're the only ones capable of actually resolving the first two major types of ED, which is neurologically based and energetic based, by simply refraining from pornography and semen release. Mainstream Western medicine can't do that for us. Nobody can do that for us except each individual has to do that has this addiction. So the three types are PIED, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, which we don't talk enough about neurology, but we need our neurology for getting aroused, not only to sex and our partner, but to life. And the second form is energetic ED, which is has to do with our semen release, releasing our semen too often. And that just causes a depletion in our chi sexual energy. Our chi sexual energy cannot be separated from our overall energy because chi is really our life force. It's God within us. And dopamine is our drive, our inspiration, determination, and the will of God for us to become our ideal selves. God has given us this gift of neurochemistry and energies that we're simply abusing. And Eastern traditions are totally familiar with this. It's just in the West, we aren't. And we're simply abusing these gifts we've been given by God. And the answer is really easy and simple. It's to give up this addiction to pornography and semen release. That's the answer. And then organic ED is the third one. That's the one that we always go to, and we're sort of brainwashed to go to automatically. We get so focused on organic ED. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm saying that first we need to focus on the first two, because the reason is that you can have, even if Western medicine does prescribe if they luck out and that one little sliver of tool that they have for ED does actually land itself on someone that has blood flow restrictive ED, they still may be watching pornography and releasing semen to pornography, and they will not resolve their ED until they first resolve those two. And then we can look at whether we have a blood flow issue or we have a hormonal issue. And all this is physical organic ED is definitely resolvable naturally without side effects. I go into it in my book with the chelation IVs for arteriosclerosis. But, Western medicine doesn't, even with their ED medication, Viagra and all that, the blood flow inducing, nitric oxide inducing medications, doesn't actually cure anything. Just so you're clear, I know you know this, Ashley, but those listening, it doesn't cure a thing. It actually just bypasses the real underlying source of the issue, which is and that's what I get into in my book, in my exploration that God led me on. I got to the real source of what is causing blood flow ED, which is arteriosclerosis. But even deeper than that, it's not just arteriosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis is a symptom. What actually is causing nitric oxide dysfunction that Western medicine is jump-starting with nitric oxide-inducing pharmaceutical ED medication? Well, the answer is what goes in our mouth. It's what we drink and eat. It's what we drink or breathe through the form of heavy metals. It's what we eat with animal-based diet, which is full of saturated fats, carcinogens, and free radicals, as well as pollutants and smoking. That's the source of arteriosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis is really a conglomeration of, it's really a symptom. It's a conglomeration of plaque, calcification, and heavy metals. And we have ways to get rid of all this through chelation IV therapy, plaque X IV therapy, and we can break up that conglomeration. I did it myself, actually, and there's numerous studies, which I'll cite later, that show that we do not need to have people dying anymore of cardiovascular disease, heart attacks. We do not need to have people suffering with the scarlet letter of erectile dysfunction. I have solutions in my book, and that God has given me to give to everyone, that I pulled together all aspects of holistic health related to sexual health, because sexual health is intertwined with everything else, our neurology, our cardiovascular, our hormonal, and our nervous system, as well as our mental health, emotional health, and our relationships. It's all intertwined, and I think Western medicine wants to make us think you can isolate sexuality, sexual dysfunction to simply the genital pelvic region and take one pill, one little pill that's going to resolve it. A pill will never replace true healing.
Right. You just summed up my entire podcast.
I knew you'd love that.
Pharmaceutical, drug-based medicine has its place. It should be if you're looking for results, if you're looking for getting to the root cause, if you're looking for true health, pharmaceutical-based medicine is a very small slice of the pie, very, very small. But what we've been raised to believe is that it's the whole pie, or 95% of the pie, and that there's some alternative pie you can go explore. But really, first you should get on a bunch of drugs. So the first thing we have to do is we have to pull ourselves out of the matrix that we've been born and raised in, that we have been brainwashed since birth to believe that the medical industry is the best and has all the answers, and the MD with their little prescription pad has all the answers, right? And if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have a clue that they don't. I've had so many doctors on my show who went through the medical system, spent $500,000 and 8 to 12 years to become these amazing doctors, only to find that they paid for an education that taught them how to sell drugs, and that they weren't getting results. They weren't actually helping their patients. And so many of the doctors I've interviewed then had health issues of their own, and their own style of medicine couldn't heal them. So then they had to find natural medicine. And that's what healed them. And then they woke up and they went, oh my gosh, I was brainwashed in a system. These drug-based medicine, again, very small slice of the pie. But the problem is we've been brainwashed to believe it's the pie, it's the whole pie. And once we wake up and realize we have to advocate for ourselves, we have to do things like listen to podcasts and read books, learn from people like Brooke Hazen, who's showing us that the mainstream medical system will never, ever talk to you about your dopamine levels, about porn addiction, about your energetic health, about your pelvic floor health, about ways that you can reverse heart disease, and the diet and the chelation and all the things that you can do to reverse heart disease. Your doctor's not going to talk to you about that. You have to go out. You have to find the right holistic doctor. You have to find the books. You have to find the information yourself. We have to advocate, and we have to be the conductor of our orchestra, right? The orchestra is all the holistic people that we go to, the chiropractor and the homeopath and the acupuncturist and the naturopath, all, like our whole orchestra is there to help us, but we're the conductor, and we have to take matters into our own hands and be willing to explore different things, like be willing to throw out, unplug the TV, unplug it, stop watching the news, stop watching, like you said, stop watching the screen, stop watching put the cell phone away, stop watching porn, right? And address the dopamine imbalance. And this is for men and women. I know men largely, they're statistically largely more men than women watch porn, but this is not just a male issue. I believe that all people, all adults, and the problem is now children have access to it, younger and younger and younger. In my state of Washington, they're teaching masturbation to fourth graders in our public school system. It's getting kind of weirder and weirder out here. But what we have to get is that addiction. I've had a great interview with Joan Ifland, and we talked about this. Addiction brain is not just alcohol or methamphetamines or cocaine. It can be porn, right? It can be alcohol, yes, but it could also be something that is more socially acceptable, right? It could be sugar. It could be, drinking wine, but it could be porn. It could be whatever you're addicted to, whatever it's causing this dopamine imbalance. And then the dopamine imbalance gives you this plethora of effects, of side effects, which one is, sexual dysfunction, but the other is, like you said, you have distance with your partner. Maybe you're quick to anger. Maybe you're depressed. Maybe you're unmotivated, agitated. It'll show up in your work performance. It'll show up in your, even in your willingness to live, willingness to like go out there and live a life, and your enthusiasm or your zest for life starts to just deplete. And from more of a spiritual sense, it's almost like demonic energies, demonic vampires, right, are sucking the life out of us when we plug into these little outlets that give us temporary pleasure, but then drain us, just suck us dry of the vital life force. So we have to be really protective of where we go to get our pleasure. Right, go get your pleasure from walking with your partner, holding their hand, and looking at a sunset, or go play with your kids or grandkids, or your nieces, nephews at the park. Get pleasure from something that's wholesome and protects you from these outlets that might give you temporary boost in pleasure, but then completely suck you dry of your vital life force. So I see that what you're talking about is part of this grand scheme to keep us as rats just so preoccupied, running around so preoccupied we don't wake up and advocate for ourselves.
It's kind of amazing because the elephants in the room are so in front of us, but nobody's talking about it in Western medicine. With blood flow issues related to ED, nobody's talking about diet, about when it comes to arteriosclerosis, nobody talks about the root cause of it. Heavy metals have been shown to be a very big factor now, but also what we're eating, the food we're eating is what's causing it, as well as smoking and environmental pollutants. The other elephant in the room nobody talks about with ED is this pornography epidemic. We're at the end of a 2-decade-long massive experiment on the global population with free internet porn. And the results are in, and they are harrowing. There's an entire generation of young men who are unable to perform sexually with a real partner and engage in any connective, intimate relationship. It's really a dopamine addiction, and I want to tell you why this is. What we don't understand in the West, but Eastern traditions are well aware of for millennia, is the enormous toll that an ejaculation really is semen release. That's why I don't say ejaculation, I say semen release, because we can still ejaculate and have full body orgasms. It's this semen release that causes this intense dopamine drop where dopamine crashes and prolactin rises, and this intense refractory period and period of replenishment takes place, where the body pulls all the most precious resources of growth factor, hormones, and nutrients from all the parts of our body with the sole purpose of replacing that vital sperm. This really is our liquid gold. And so the pornography and semen release is a super stimulus, and it's because it combines the two. It combines the semen release with that dopamine effect that I just mentioned, which causes massive mood swings, fatigue, and distancing in the relationship. But it's also the super stimulus of the novelty, the constant novelty that takes place with pornography, where we're just desensitizing and building these neural pathways in our brain that's specific to just what gets us aroused. And this is what slowly replaces our partners in real life. That's actually what's happening. So it's this super stimulus that's taking place. And actually the brain cannot tell the difference between a chemical addiction like alcohol, morphine, cocaine, and a neurological addiction, which is pornography. And so it's this, what happens is the brain actually is completely overwhelmed with this super stimulus of the imagery combined with the dopamine crashes of the semen release. And the brain starts canceling out dopamine receptor sites and dopamine levels, and they crash to very low levels. And as I mentioned, these are gifts we've been given. This affects not just our sexual performance, but our arousal to life, really, to everything, because our physical selves, our physical health is completely inseparable from sexual health. The lingam is really the protruding member of a vast orchestra, as you mentioned, of neurological, nervous, cardiovascular, and endocrine or hormonal health. It's really the canary in the coal mine that will shout out, what our level of health or disease is currently within those systems. But again, the key to unlocking and to making it easier for us to make massive transformations physically lies in this neurology, the balanced neurology and the balanced energy levels. And people freak out around the concept of semen retention, but really it's such a misconception. It's actually the opposite of what we think. The benefits of semen retention is so enormous. I mean, first you have increased sensitivity and potency sexually. Then you also have a prolonged sexual experience where you're actually able to come into alignment with your partner. And women are usually just getting warmed up. At the moment, the man is finished. So this gets us in alignment where we can have a much more connective relationship. And most importantly is we avoid the poison and the distancing that takes place through this mating behavior of releasing semen with the sole goal of getting to climax. We can, through Karetsa, Tao, and Tantra for millennia, Eastern cultures have been aware of this and have been supplanting this mating behavior with bonding behaviors. And this actually can build long-term relationships through, eye gazing, caressing, deep connective sensual play and respecting, honoring, communication, embracing, holding. All these behaviors build connection through oxytocin. Mating behaviors are focused, really driven by dopamine. We want to just get that in balance. We want to have balanced dopamine levels by disengaging in any form of pornography, and we want to get balanced energy through semen retention, and we want to have connective relationships through building oxytocin-based behaviors.
Can you give us examples of behaviors that would help us to balance this in our day-to-day lives? So bonding mating and bonding behaviors, this is something that Marnia Robinson, who wrote a review for my book, goes into in detail in her book, Cupid's Poisoned Arrow. And my book actually draws together all the different types, the neurology of pornography, the neurology of
relationships, and then also organic ED and overall physical and mental, emotional health, spiritual health. I tie it all together, but she talks about in there how through studies, it's shown that this over hundreds of thousands of years, the brain has developed these neural pathways of either bonding or mating-based behaviors. We have both, and we're able to actually. We talk about when we talk about biohacking. Biohacking is reclaiming our vitality, vibrancy, and youthful vigor. This is actually a big biohack, is supplanting mating behaviors with bonding behaviors. And bonding behaviors we've built over 100,000 years through family, friends, through our immediate culture, through our babies, through our immediate family. These are the kind of behaviors that are extremely connective and build oxytocin. So the mating brain, the mating behavior, which pornography fits perfectly into, is actually incredibly poison and destructive to long-term relationships, because the real sole goal of mating, the mating brain, mating behavior, is to spread maximum genetic diversity to a wide range of novel mates. And there's really no end to this search. There's no end to this dopamine addiction of this novel search and this dopamine crashes. In fact, I mentioned the dopamine crashes. When we have this semen release, the brain dopamine levels crash, and this process of replenishment and refractory period lasts for up to 2 weeks. In fact, the largest reverberations can take place at the 2-week level. I can tell you as a man that when we're addicted to pornography, and even just in masturbation in general, but usually pornography is involved almost all the time, that men are releasing their semen not just every few days, definitely not every 2 weeks, but they're doing it daily usually, and sometimes multiple times per day. Now, what that means is we're getting a perpetual state of chronic fatigue, mood imbalance, and distancing in the relationship. It's truly poisonous to relationships, and that's where sexual health crosses into relational health.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting, this concept that by overstimulating yourself with pornography or sort of over masturbation, that one is in this brain. The brain is in this mindset of wanting to spread the seed as opposed to grow roots in a relationship. And so they become restless within the relationship. They become agitated. They're not bonded. They're not connected to emotionally to their partner. And are they looking around? Are they looking to cheat? Does pornography lead to infidelity?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It leads to. It's going to inevitably lead a partner towards finding a new novel mate in the relationship, just like is happening with pornography, where it's an escalating addiction where men and women, women are also can get addicted to pornography. It's just that women choose more connective behaviors. Only 26% of women end up watching pornography weekly, whereas men are at 80%. I think it's probably more, but
You talked about this 2 week. It takes up to 2 weeks after one ejaculation for dopamine to rebalance. Can you dive into that and explain that a bit more?
Yeah. This science shows that that when a semen is released, that this refractory period, this period of replenishment where prolactin rises and dopamine crashes, continues in that sort of ratio for up to 2 weeks, and it weaves up and down. So maybe in a few days you'll sort of come out of the overwhelming haze of the first few days can tend to be more intense. But this does continue for up to 2 weeks, it's been shown. So what we're getting is overlapping cycles of dopamine crashes and prolactin rising. I mean, forget it. If men are releasing semen multiple times per day or once a day or even every few days, they're in a chronic perpetual state of crashed dopamine levels. And again, dopamine is our drive, our inspiration, our determination. It's how we become our ideal selves. It's that motivation to be the best we can be. We don't have that anymore. And, it's interesting with pornography. This is all so new for people that don't understand this in the West. And this is a new experiment that's coming too. But we don't understand that what men are going through is actually, prolactin is actually, going back to the replenishment cycle, prolactin is actually what causes fatigue. It's a chemical that causes fatigue. And the dopamine is that important, what we need for life. And so what I think I was going to say is that we don't realize that this truly is an addiction. That, like, if we had a cocaine or morphine addict or an alcoholic, let's say, and that was our partner in real life, we would not expect them to be fully capable of having an intimate, beautiful, best relationship they can possibly have, to be at their peak physical conditioning, and to have balanced neurology. Would we? We wouldn't
while they're
expect
fighting
that.
while they're fighting the addiction, or while they're in the addiction, while they're using,
while they're in the addiction, when they're unaware of the addiction, and even while they're still in the grips of it, even if they're aware that they want to get out of it.
Right.
We wouldn't expect that. But with pornography, we're completely unaware that this is the same as an addiction. The brain cannot tell any difference between an alcohol, cocaine, or morphine addiction and a porn addiction, because these are all dopamine addictions. Even we have food addictions that are dopamine driven also. All these are dopamine. And that's why I get into, organic ED, which I want to get into. Diet is so important. I mean, we could end up using chelation therapy and get rid of our symptoms of, arteriosclerosis as a symptom, which is, we can get rid of the free radical damage. We can get rid of that calcification and plaque buildup and heavy metals. But if we're continuing to eat animal-based diet, which is the source of this free radical damage, oxidation through, saturated fats and carcinogens. And as we continue to not deal with the heavy metal buildup in our bodies, which is so important, and collate that out, through the diet, we're going to continue to just keep creating the same problem. We'll never resolve the source of organic ED through cardiovascular. There's really a few different markers that urologists look at with organic ED, which is physical ED. That's where we always jump to. We're always like, oh my God, physical ED. Well, first we got to deal with neurological and energetic, but we can also heighten even if we don't have organic ED, we can better we can increase our sexual health and prevent further possible organic ED in the future by looking at hormonal. That's what they look at first, or they look at in addition to blood flow. They don't really look at blood flow. They just prescribe medications. But hormonal, we can resolve easily with bioidentical pellet therapy, TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. It's bioidentical, it's natural, it's pellets that mimic as best as we can find the natural cycles of hormones, testosterone within our body. They'll look at blood flow, and that's where I get to the root source of it. And that's where, if we don't look at this holistically, where we're looking at diet too, we're going to just continue to have the same problem, because there's this big elephant in the room that is standing right in the middle of our living room that Western medicine and Western culture is not willing to talk about, which is what we're eating, this heavy metal exposure we have, environmental pollutants, smoking, pornography, and too much semen release.
So it's like all lifestyle. I mean, it's all lifestyle. And then we go to the doctor and they want to give us a drug. And it's I love the meme. I keep seeing it on Facebook. I love the meme. You know, I keep trying to follow the science, but it keeps leading me to the money. And that's just it. The pharmaceutical industry, which is petroleum based. And please, if you want to go down a fun rabbit hole, go down the rabbit hole of the history of the modern medical system, beginning with petroleum-based pharmaceuticals. I've had a few guests on that talk about it, but it is a wild trip to go down understanding the last 120 years and what's led us up to where we are now, where you go to a doctor and they just and we put them on such a pedestal, and then they give us a drug that it is not in any way, it's like giving you an Advil or a Band-Aid. It's not in any way figuring out why you had the headache in the first place. It's just, and it's not fixing the problem whatsoever. The problem, like you said, it's neurological. We have such a dopamine addiction epidemic. If you're not watching porn, look in your life where you have a compulsion or an addiction where do you have to watch, copious amounts of TV or sugar? Or like I have a friend who she has to drink alcohol on the weekends. Like she'll not drink alcohol Monday through Friday, but on the weekends she has to drink alcohol. And it's just like, that, and I'm not saying you're an alcoholic, right? Because you and I think maybe an alcoholic is someone who's like shaking if they're not drinking alcohol, right? But if you, like, I talked to her because I was talking about doing a long-term fast, and she's like, I can't fast. I have to drink alcohol on the weekends. I have to drink alcohol on the weekends. And I'm like, you can't skip a weekend, like at all, like for your health, to do like a 7-day fast. Like if you want, because we were talking about doing a 7-day or longer fast. Absolutely not an option. She has to drink alcohol on the weekends. And if there's like, I have to do this, and you're not flexible, then there's an addiction there. If the substance is controlling your life and you can't leave that substance. Like I dated a guy when I was a teenager who couldn't fly on airplanes because he wasn't able to smoke on the airplane. Like he wasn't willing to like not have a cigarette for 2 hours to take a flight somewhere. So if a substance is controlling your life, that's an obvious answer, but there's less obvious ones. And sometimes our dopamine addictions are really in our blind spots. And so talking to someone who is in your life that you really trust and you can get vulnerable with to uncover what's going on. But like food is a big one, right? Food is a really big one. Do you get upset if you don't have access to the food you want? Like if you don't get to have dessert, or you don't get to have, if there's some kind of food you like that you want and you don't have access to it, do you get angry or irritated, or do you have to have it, right? That's just an example of food. There's food addiction that could be obvious, like you're binge eating, but there can be less obvious ones, like you always have to have the certain thing in your house because you have to eat it every day. So looking at how we can uncover this, I had a friend, unfortunately he's passed away, really nice guy who was a raging alcoholic, and then he quit cold turkey because he was losing everything, including his family. And so he quit cold turkey, and he was amazing after that. Sober for 20 years. But every time I visited him, he had a cigarette in one hand and a candy bar in the other. He absolutely traded one addiction for another. Now he was sober and he was paying the bills and loving on his family, but he always had Halloween candy all year round. It was amazing how many bags of Halloween candy he'd buy at Halloween, because he always had giant bags of Halloween candy surrounding him when he sat at the couch, and a cigarette in one hand and like just constant candy and sugar in the other. And if you go to AA meetings, you'll see they always have copious amounts of sugar, because I'm so proud of them for gaining sobriety from alcohol, but they actually didn't stop. They did not conquer the addiction. They didn't balance their dopamine levels. They're still using. They're just traded in one drug for another. So when someone stops porn, the first thing the brain's going to want to do is trade in one addiction for another. And that's what we want to make sure we set ourselves up for, is success. So we don't do that. We want to set ourselves up so that we heal like you said, heal the nervous system, heal the dopamine levels. And dopamine's not the only chemical going on in our brain. Like my interview with Joan Ifland, who's a PhD in addiction, and she talks about balancing different brain chemicals. But I love, Brooke, that you are shining light on this taboo subject, because we really want to take. So men, and again, women are affected by this too in a different way. Like I believe they're affected in a similar way, I should say. But men in our society still are taught they're not allowed to be vulnerable. They have to be strong and tough. They're not allowed to have emotions. They're not allowed to have breakdowns, and there's a lot of shame and hidden shame. And so for you to shine light on such a taboo subject where men feel they feel like they cannot talk about it, right? So you're bringing healing to a part of humanity where humanity has not been allowed to shine light on this and heal. So I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Well, dopamine is a cycle that builds, further dopamine addictions. It's cyclical. So that's why I said, and God really is telling us that the gateway to allowing God into our lives and for massive transformation on a healing level holistically, opening that door to that massive change in our life really starts with balancing the neurology and the energies that we have within us, those gifts we have. It has to start there.
You were going to mention some studies that you said you'd talk about later.
Yeah.
Do you have those studies?
Yeah, and also, I do want to get into that. I also just want to say too my book's full of biohacks. I mean, the mother of all biohacks is what I just said, is that nobody talks about is balanced neurology and energy. That's the launching pad that I've experienced. I can tell you firsthand, this is how I went through this incredible transformation. And I believe that's why God led me to this and had me write this book. I promised God I'd write this book, but I also want to get into the organic further and talk about the when I mentioned a plant-based diet, or I mentioned an animal-based diet, and how that's the elephant in the room. We can have a plant-based diet, and it's really the pinnacle of all diets is a plant-based diet. But we can, if we're not careful, we can still have problems with a plant-based diet.
Oreos are vegan. Oreos are vegan.
Yeah,
so
right.
You got to watch out. This plant. If you buy packaged foods that it says plant-based on it, just walk away. Shop the perimeter of the grocery store. Don't go down the aisles. Processed food is not these Franken foods. They're not healthy if they're full of oil, full of these processed oils, polyunsaturated, fatty, whatever, all that stuff. You don't want to eat it. You don't want to eat the canola oil and all that stuff, right? You want to eat real
because
food.
if we eat lots of flours, not edible flours, but grain flours, we're going to end up having a lot of obesity take place, which I've experienced myself in the past. So I'll call it a light plant-based diet, meaning it's full of light, high in vegetables and fruits in different forms, how we prepare it, nuts. If we're going to have grains, just have a small amount of quinoa or, whole grains, but stay away from processed flours. But that's really important. I also wanted to talk about, before we get into your question about the chelation therapy and those studies, I want to mention that something really amazing, which is another biohack, is donating blood. You never would have guessed this, but donating blood decreases the chance of heart attack by 88% with just one donation per year. Now, we should be practicing this on every level, but Western medicine clearly not telling us about this. But I'm telling you now, donate blood. It's like an oil change for your body. It reduces iron stores and oxidants in our body and increases antioxidant capacity. Now, when going back to what I mentioned earlier about the source of arteriosclerosis, the source of blood flow ED, which we're all so scared of because that's the only tool that Western medicine has. They really don't know what they're doing. So that's all they can do is prescribe that one medicine because it's money driven. But the source is free radical damage. So the different ways to get to that is to get rid of the free radicals, which is the heavy metals through IV chelation therapy, Plaque X, which gets rid of the, it's a natural source from soybean, which gets rid of the plaque buildup. That gets rid of that breaks apart the arteriosclerosis. But we also can add in antioxidants, both IV as well as orally. It's just that IVs are much more transformative than oral because it bypasses the digestive tract, and 100% of these chelations, nutrients, and antioxidants are able to go to every cell of our body as opposed to a fraction through oral. And actually, the holistic health sector of our medicine is moving more and more in this direction. It's we can heal cancers, arteriosclerosis, immune system issues, through Myers cocktail. I've seen an enormous boost in my immune system. And I add in NAD, which NAD is anti-aging. It's another biohack. These are incredible biohacks. NAD increases the length of our DNA strands, which is literally anti-aging and happening in front of our eyes. It increases energy levels, clarity, mental clarity, and also rebuilds receptor sites like dopamine that have been, we can rebuild chemically, neurochemically, from ED, from addiction to pornography, from dopamine crash levels. But the studies for the chelation therapy are astounding. There was a study in 1991. There hasn't been, there's been a TACT-1 study and TACT-2 study that's recent, but this other study from 1991 involved 22,765 patients, and 87% of them had marked improvement in vascular disease with just one course of disodium EDTA. Now, in this podcast, I'll tell you I recommend calcium EDTA. It does the same thing as disodium EDTA, but back then they were using disodium EDTA for the study, and they estimated that in 1991 that 363,000 of the 407,000 bypass surgeries that year could have been avoided, saving an estimated $8 billion. $8 billion with a B.
When you say saving, you have to remember, no. It was making them $8 billion. It was profit.
Exactly.
Profit.
That's the politics of this is astounding. So the TACT-1 study, which is the trial to assess chelation therapy, it's a government-based study, showed a 51% reduction in cardiac events and a 43% reduction in mortality in patients with diabetes. I'm going to repeat that again. A 51% reduction of cardiac events and a 43% reduction in mortality in patients with diabetes after receiving one course of disodium EDTA, which is, I believe it's around, it can be anywhere from 20 to 30 different IVs. But when you combine Plaque X with this, as I mentioned before, this is sort of the trifecta of getting rid of this heavy metal, calcification, and Plaque X, which causes arteriosclerosis. Now, we should be practicing this on a massive scale. And actually, as holistic health people, we need to be demanding this, because right now we're at war with the FDA and the different political bodies and insurance companies and pharmaceutical industries who are selling statins, and they're trying to, hinder and harass this process of obtaining these. So we should demand this. We should absolutely demand that they need to stop killing people, because statins are actually been shown to increase deaths from cancer and heart attack, because they're actually lowering our LDL cholesterol artificially. Well, again, they're missing the entire picture. LDL is a symptom. LDL cholesterol is produced in increasing amounts. It's an antioxidant, antiviral, anti-cancer. And it's our only source of protection, other than these chelation IV therapies, from free radical damage. They're missing the entire picture that the source of arteriosclerosis is free radical damage. Arteriosclerosis is a symptom of what they're trying to sell us with these statins, these pharmaceuticals, and they're actually doing the opposite. They're actually killing people. By giving them these statins.
So I'm going to get on my soapbox for a little sec to teach something.
Go for it.
So statins. So for those who don't know, because this is so monumentally important, I was taught this by my naturopathic physician mentors. Statins. So they believed that cholesterol caused heart disease because they looked at, let's say, a heart, and they said, oh, look, there's a clog in the heart. There's cholesterol in that clog. Therefore, cholesterol causes heart attacks. That is like saying, showing up to a house fire, seeing that there's firemen there, and saying, there's always firemen when I see a fire, so firemen cause fires.
Exactly.
That is so cholesterol, the blockage is not the cause, it is a symptom of a problem. Yes. And what they decided to do is the pharmaceutical industry, just like the pharmaceutical industry decided to, quote unquote, treat or cure ED by giving you Viagra or some kind of something that increases the vasculature when we know it's actually seldom just a blood flow problem. It's seldom a blood flow problem, but they've got a pill and they're treating all forms of erectile dysfunction with a pill that only forces the body to do one thing, right? So the same with quote unquote preventing heart disease, right? They give you a statin. Now, what do statins do? And this is very enlightening. The liver, cholesterol is so important for your health that your liver makes it. I could be eating a raw food vegan diet where I'm only eating salads and fruit, occasionally some nuts. There's many people out there that eat that way. I could be eating that diet and I still have cholesterol in my body, right? My liver makes it. It's so important your liver makes it. It's protective of every cell in the body, every cell, 37 trillion cells in the body have a fat layer that is the cell wall. Your nervous system has insulation, just like your house. All the wires in your house have insulation so that there's not a electrical fire. So too your nervous system has insulation, and that insulation is made of cholesterol. It's made of healthy fats. So your brain has cholesterol. Your sex hormones and stress hormones, both of them very important for your optimal health, are derived from these healthy fats, this type of cholesterol. So your body needs this. And I'm not saying go out there and eat a keto diet where you're like always eating fat. I'm not saying consume high amounts of fat. I'm just saying
that can be dangerous.
So important. Yes, it's so important that I could eat a very sort of clean and not eat any cholesterol, right? I could eat no cholesterol at all. Right? I'm not eating any animals. I could eat no animals, just like salads and apples and some seeds. And my liver will make all the cholesterol my body needs. Now, statins, what they do is they bruise the liver so much, they damage the liver, that the liver ceases to produce the amount of cholesterol it was producing. That's all statins do. So the doctor says to you, your cholesterol's high. I'd like you to have lower cholesterol. Here, please take this drug. Now, back until I think it was 2012. And you can go it's actually in Wiki. It's like on mainstream websites, you can find the history of the statins. But up until 2012, you had to go in for regular blood tests. It was either every 3 months or every 6 months, but regular, like more regular than once a year. If you were on statins, you had to go for regular blood tests to test your liver enzymes to make sure that the statins were not over damaging your liver and basically over compromising your body. Because the drug is designed to punch your liver to the point where your liver stops functioning enough. That's what statins do. Now, as a side effect of hurting the liver so much, as a side effect, you then develop neuropathy. How many, and just raise your hand if you have a family member who's been on statins and now can't feel their hands or feet and starts falling? Because I have 3 family members who won't listen to me, right? This is the problem, right? Because the doctor has the plaque behind them and the $500,000, medical degree that says they know better. And these people they're elderly,
So their body doesn't have enough cholesterol. It's damaged their liver. Now it's damaged their sex hormones and stress hormones. Now it's damaged their nervous system. Your myelin sheath is being eaten away because you don't have enough of this healthy cholesterol, and you get neuropathy. And you also have neuropathy from other things too. But statins are known to long-term effect cause neuropathy. So now you can't feel your feet, and then you end up falling. So I actually have 3 family members who were constantly falling and hurting themselves because of the neuropathy, because of the long-term use of statins. Very frustrating that statins are still being recommended on a regular basis when it's like saying we have to get rid of firemen. We need to defund the fire department because firemen cause fires. That's the same logic. Now I've had, I believe, 5 cardiologists on my show, award-winning cardiologists on my show, and all of them say statins should not be, you got to throw them out. Well, dump them down the toilet, but really take them back to the pharmacy and have them disposed of correctly. But throw them out. They do not work. I had Dr. Esselstyn on my show, and he wrote the book How to Reverse and Prevent Heart Disease, and he shows that with a diet, a very clean whole food plant-based diet, very specific, he has a specific, so he lays it out, a plan, and when you follow it, people's erectile dysfunction goes away, but their heart disease goes away within 2 years. All clogs and all arteries are gone. So you can mop up and clean up the cardiovascular system with a clean, healthy diet, and it's something to look into. I often have guests on the show that boast the benefits of the whole food plant-based diet, and then listeners think that I'm being biased and it's like this is a vegan show. Listen, I also have had guests that talk about the benefits of eating organ meat. Just the fact is, look at the proof. If you take someone who has heart disease and you put them on Dr. Esselstyn's diet, 3 months down the road, their angina is gone. They're not winded anymore. They can walk long distances, whereas they couldn't before. Mm-hmm. The blood clots they had in their legs are gone. Like, you don't get that from any other diet.
Even more than that, you can literally just drink water and you can cure yourself of all this and get off those medications. I mean, the elephant in the room that they will not talk about, and really none of us really talk about, is an animal-based diet that's causing these problems, and heavy metals and other things. But this gets back to the pressure, the peer pressure, and I want to encourage everyone to let go of our fears, our myths and misconceptions, the addictions and negative habits that keep us bound, and the peer pressure from family, friends, cultural pressure, and corporate peer pressure. Let go of all that, because that is what is going to continue to keep us harming ourselves. We need to throw all that away. Really, I don't believe that Western medicine has any other place other than emergencies where, it's a sick care system. They're waiting for a symptom that's serious to come up, and then they just patch it up with these pharmaceuticals and surgeries. That's all they have. It's, as you said in one podcast, I loved it. You said it's one sliver of medicine, but really for ED and for cardiovascular health, all this, our physical health, holistic health is the only way to practice curative and preventative natural modalities without side effects. Side effects are just a symptom that we're reducing things too much. We're not looking at everything. And that's why we get side effects. They're looking at one process within one process within one process. They're not looking at the whole. They never will look at the whole. If you expect anything like that from Western medicine, you will not get it. I guarantee you. You could ask any Western medicine doctor that truly believes in Western medicine. They will not provide any natural, holistic, curative, and preventative types of healing modalities, period. Only pharmaceutical surgeries. That's it, because that's what it's built on. It's built on sand. It's got huge limitations that we need to recognize and stop giving all our power away to corporations. I even feel pressure to bring up a plant-based diet. Why? There's so much pressure around it. There's corporations through big pharma and animal industry are pressuring us, and they're causing us to pressure each other. And I feel closed down that I'm not allowed to bring it up. That's not right, because the science shows we should live by the science. Everything I have in my book is 111 scientific studies that are firsthand studies that back it up. We should go by the science. It shows that plant-based diet protects us from the 15 leading causes of death in the world. It actually protects us from cancers and from cardiovascular disease. It fights against that. Instead, it gives it to us. I also want to talk quickly before our time ends about a couple more really important biohacks. There's intermittent fasting, which has to do with diet. This burns visceral fat. Visceral fat is it's the most harmful form of fat. It wraps around our organs. It's linked with all kinds of diseases, neurodegenerative, cardiovascular diseases, cancers. But when you go from to deeper hours, like if you go to 18 to 24 hours fasting, you start to burn off misshapen cellular components that cause neurodegenerative diseases and cancers. So that's an incredible biohack I found. I practice it every day. I've been doing it for 2 years. And another biohack that I really love is, I mentioned donating blood. There's stem cell PRP for ED. PRP is platelet. PRP it's where you spin your blood, your own blood for 15 minutes, and it yields a golden nectar full of growth factors. And that can be used internally as well as in the lingam. I also wanted to mention EPAT, which is extracorporeal pulse activation technology. That's a ultrasound that is used on the lingam and can be used anywhere in your body. It's actually used primarily too for any sort of pains in the body. And what it's used for erectile health and can be used for anyone, men and women, is for breaking up plaque on the outside. So now we have ability to not only break up plaque and calcification of our blood vessels on the inside through chelation IV therapy and Plaque X, but on the outside in, we can actually break it up with EPAT, with extracorporeal pulse activation technique. And you mentioned Kegels too. Kegels are highly effective too as a monotherapy for ED, for organic ED. Again, we get so hyper-focused on organic ED. I like to think of it more as we're rejuvenating and enhancing our sexual function. But Kegels, our practice, I have it in my book where there's certain practices where you do it twice a day, and they've been shown to be incredibly effective at increasing basically sexual function. And could also, I wanted to tell people that, one thing I discovered was something in the East they've been trying to, for millennia, figure out ways to block semen release during sex. I found that Kegels are actually the easiest way to do it. That, during the process of intercourse, when you can pull out and allow, slow things down and prolong the experience and get fully embodied in the experience. But then when that moment does arise where for men, there's this point of no return where this automatic process of semen release starts, you can just do the Kegel technique, which is flexing the muscles. There's 3 different points. There's sort of the anus, around the lingam, and then in between, the Alcock's canal. You can flex that, and it'll keep your semen from going out. I mean, there might be a teeny bit, like it took me a little while to learn this technique, but basically the main goal is to avoid, full climactic semen release as well as partial semen release. And I was at first experienced a lot of partial semen release, but the Kegels were what really fit perfectly for avoiding semen release, because again, avoiding semen release is so critical. It's keeping all of our life force inside of our body, all those incredible growth factors, hormones, and nutrients cycles throughout our body during lovemaking. And it instead of distancing after sex, we're actually able to stay close to each other and bond in timeless, breathless union.
Cuddle time.
Yeah, like pass out time where you go into this other state.
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
Oh man, I love that. When you nap together in each other's arms. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, where do you go? To heaven.
Right?
Yes, it's nice.
It's so great.
That's where sex, we need to honor sex. Sex is part of God. That's why I wrote this book. We shouldn't shy away from it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I ask everyone to let go of their fears. The only way that you're going to experience transformation like I've gone through, and what hundreds of thousands of people are doing now through the NoFap movement of giving up pornography and addiction and anything in life, if you want to transform your overall physical health, neurology, your relationships, is to let go of those fears. Because I just want to end my portion by asking each person out there, what is it that is blocking us from becoming the ideal versions of ourselves? I mean, really, look at it. What exactly is it? Let's break it down. What is the thing that is keeping you from becoming that ideal version of yourself and working towards that right now? There's something that's doing it. And I ask that we just let ourselves go completely to all these misconceptions that our culture has been teaching us, and let ourselves go to God and allow God to transform us.
I love it. I love that you brought up the NoFap movement. I learned that from my husband because he's been on his own journey, and he gave me permission to share this. His whole life, he struggled, and he thought it was emotional. He thought there was like a mental emotional block, but he internalized so much shame. And for him, it wasn't an erectile dysfunction issue. It was a completion issue. It's like he was desensitized, and so there wasn't as much pleasure, and there was a lot of frustration. And then he just felt like, oh, this is, and he just internalized so much, and he thought it was sort of his fault. And there's some,
yes, right,
and so there was a lot of emotion. So when we married each other 14 years ago, I was kind of surprised. I'm like, is it me? And he's like, no, it's not you. And so, of course, at first I thought, right. So how many, like the other partner thinks it's them, right?
Yes, exactly. That's what happens.
Right. And he opened up and started sharing. I'm like, okay, well, let's work through this, because I'm very passionate about personal growth. And I believe we're, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So we're like,
yes,
let's dive into this. Let's figure out. So we did like a lot of emotional work, and we talked through it, and we were looking at different stuff, and he got into looking at how harmful pornography is, and he was like really blown away by that, the NoFap movement. He looked into that, and he is telling me about it, but with one of the biggest things, and that of course it blew his mind when he joined like the NoFap movement and removed pornography. And when he did that, huge success around that. But the biggest breakthrough for him was this was I want to say 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. It was right around when medium.com came out, and it was just brand new. And he's like, hey, you should write on medium.com. And I'm like, what is this? He's like, it's kind of like a blog, but instead of you having your own blog, everyone writes their own article on this thing. And I'm like, okay, well, let's look into it. And so I clicked on the health section, because I wanted to see what was in there. And the number one health article was on regrowing your foreskin. And at first we laughed, but then we realized they were being serious, and we clicked on it, and it was this very long and detailed explanation of how to regrow your foreskin. Now, I have an entire interview on circumcision, and also we talked about foreskin restoration, but on circumcision and everything you do lose, there's it's actually a part of your immune system. There's over 40,000, I think it was 40,000 or more nerve endings. Like there's a lot that is being removed from you that you'll never get back. But one thing the foreskin does do is it protects. So that because without a foreskin, it becomes completely desensitized. the head. And so, I mean, imagine for women, imagine if your clitoral hood was removed, your clitoris would be raw and become desensitized over time. So that's the same thing that happens to men. It's genital mutilation. And so he regrew most of his foreskin. It took a few years, but once, he just wore a device and it wasn't painful at all. And he was very excited about it. And what we discovered is most of his problems from, teenagehood up, most of his problems was that and this is a very common thing, they botch. Over 200,000 circumcisions in America a year are botched. And you don't know, sometimes you know it because it's obvious, but sometimes it's too tight and the doctor just doesn't, you don't know, right? And so it was too tight. All the scar tissue was too tight for him. And so once he regrew some foreskin, it loosened up, and also then it protected it. So there's less desensitization, and it was like he could finally breathe. It was so healing for him because he let go of a lot of that shame and a lot of the negativity, or when he realized this was a physiological problem, not nothing. He's not broken, right? And then in addition to doing the no FAP and no porn, he's like, for him, he's like a new person. And so he was so excited. So he although he's a very private and introverted person, he gave me permission to share this because it could help others. Even if it helps one other person, it's worth it to share. So again, there's so many avenues out there. And you're not going to find it you're not going to find the answers by going to one doctor, right? And that's just what we're taught. Just go to the doctor's office. You have to dive in and dig in and explore. I definitely recommend that listeners get your book. You Are Not Broken. Just like my husband found out that he was not broken. You Are Not Broken, a holistic guide for men and women to heal the pathways of sexual dysfunction and restore relational harmony together. A beautiful book. The links to that book are going to be in the show notes of today's podcast, learntoyourhealth.com, but also you can just go to brookehazen.com, which has so much information there as well.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to wrap up today's interview?
Yeah, the point you just made, I agree that I look around and it seems like people are just sort of waiting to die. Like they're afraid to truly live. And that's the real message God wants to bring through my book, is that we're actually able to revitalize ourselves, to gain that youthful vigor and vitality back in our lives. And I have techniques on every level, both spiritual, neurological, energetic, physical, relational, that can help us to do this. I just encourage everyone to be open and stay open and let go of all these myths and misconceptions, these fears, so that we can actually start living again, because I was sort of dead myself before this. I was in the deepest darkness, and in the deepest darkness, I've found the brightest light. And that's what I want to encourage all of you to do, is to live life fully. Don't be scared of living life. Don't just wait to die. And I do believe that our culture, as corporate culture, is really caused us to do and believe things that are slowly killing us. And we need to look out for ourselves now, because we don't want to die because we're following some mistaken, leadless, corporate mantras that are being given to us and that we're exerting on others as peer pressure. We want to follow our own hearts and God and follow the science and do what actually is going to lead us to vitality, vibrancy, and life.
Love it. Thank you so much, Brooke, for coming on the show and sharing with us today and shining a light. We can help men and women lead fulfilled lives and empower them, letting them know that they can find answers. They're going to keep digging. They can find answers. And that if a doctor says well, you're going to have diabetes for the rest of your life. You just have to learn. You have to learn to deal with it. It's so not the truth. I had Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, on my show, and they sent him home with a bag full of prescriptions and told him he'd be sick for the rest of his life. He'd have diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol problems, and heart disease for the rest of his life. And he said, nope. And he turned to whole foods diet. He turned to natural medicine, and now he's on no prescriptions, and he's super healthy. And that's just one example of thousands and thousands of examples of that. If your doctor says you have to be sick, it's genetic, whatever they say, give it a grain of salt. That's it. Just take it with a grain of salt, and go. I'm going to find the answers to my health.
All you have to do is let go. Just drink water, and literally you'll be better off than taking the pharmaceuticals. Just stop eating so much animal-based foods, and stop watching pornography. Stop releasing your semen all the time. Donate blood. Let go. All these things are free. They don't make them any money, and that's why they are not interested in telling you about these things, but it's so simple and easy. We just need to wake up and see the elephants in the room.
And I'd say find a holistic doctor as part of your team, naturopath, holistic doctor that believes in looking at all aspects of your life and helping you achieve that balance. It's really great to have a naturopathic doctor on your team or holistic doctor. Now, there's some doctors that are
absolutely.
they're greenwashed. They say they're holistic, but then they they have if they have their prescription pad in their hand ready to you want a doctor that sits with you for 90 minutes. Those naturopathic doctors are great. They'll sit with you for an hour to 2 hours, go through your entire life, every aspect of your life, and look at what they can do to help you in every way, not just what drug can I give you. They're looking to help you uncover all these different aspects of your life, and then hopefully they offer things like you said, like the Myers push or the chelation therapy, and those are the kind of doctors I like. That they're on the cutting edge of the holistic science. So go find one in your area and interview them. Go interview. A lot of times you can get a 15-minute free consultation. Go interview a bunch of holistic doctors and work with the ones who sort of pass your litmus test. Ask them what they think of cholesterol meds and see what they say. And like that's a good litmus test. What do you think of cholesterol meds? If I had high cholesterol, would you put me on them? And see what they say. Or what changes would you make for me if I had high cholesterol? And see what they say. And that's a good litmus test. But make sure that you have the right tools for the job, and the right tools being the right practitioners to help guide you.
There's all these scientific studies from really brilliant scientists that we can also, I actually wrote this whole book and researched this whole book with God's help and through intense research with scientific studies and through experience and experiential evidence from others. We also have the power. Don't give away our power to Western medicine and think that, we can't do anything. I did it. I healed it naturally. I had nobody leading me. They didn't know what to do with ED. In fact, with ED, even naturopaths, I totally encourage naturopaths, but even naturopaths don't necessarily know how to deal with ED. So sometimes you have to just realize that you have the power within you. Mm-hmm. Don't give your power away.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love it. Don't give your power away. You have the power within you. Keep digging, keep exploring. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us all these little nuggets of your wisdom. I really appreciate you coming today, and I hope that this podcast helps so many people. And please come back on the show if you uncover any new science that you want to share about healing erectile dysfunction.
Absolutely. I wish everyone the most beautiful, light-filled journey ahead for you.